Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with your host, Christina Nitchman.
This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our guest today is Penny Zenker, productivity expert, strategic business coach, international speaker, trainer, radio personality, and author. Penny is the creator of the P10 Productivity Accelerator System, a time-energy management system that teaches people about the 10 core drivers of productivity and the essential part they play in success and fulfillment. Penny also shares her new book, The Productivity Zone, Stop the Tug of War with Time. Find out more about Penny at P as in Peter, the number 10, app.com. Hi, Penny. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you, Christina?
I'm doing fabulous, and I'm really happy to have you out here today. You are a productivity expert, strategic business coach, international speaker and trainer, radio personality, and best-selling author. But I'm liking a lot that we're going to hit on your productivity book, The Productivity Zone, which I think is going to really help a lot of our listeners out there. But before we go into that, share with us a little bit about your background. What brought you to the world of entrepreneurship?
That sounds great. How much time do we have? Do we have all day?
Yeah. No, only a half hour.
Okay, well then I'll keep it short. I think it's like most people, we were kind of talking about things aren't by accident, right? And yeah, it's interesting how we were talking earlier about how things don't happen by accident. It's been interesting. I started out in technology, and a lot of people say to me, what does technology have to do with coaching and productivity, and how did you connect them? And really, it has a lot to do with productivity. By using technologies, it helps to make us more efficient. And so, but it's a tool. Mm-hmm. And I came to realize as I started to coach with Tony Robbins and worked with people all over the world as we talked about marketing strategies and different things, that people's number one challenge was getting out of their own way and finding time to work on their business because they were so stuck in their business, Mm-hmm. And so I realized that it was just as much or more a mindset thing than it was a tool thing. So we had to combine the tools and the mindset. And that's how I came up with the productivity zone and the 10 core drivers. Mm-hmm. Is I started to use these 10 core drivers with the people that I was coaching and seeing a huge difference as they were able to shift the way their mindset was around time in itself and really then be able to work on the strategies and build and double their businesses. So, and then it just became even more of a passion as I saw the results that we were getting. I wanted to create a system that would be able to bring it to the masses as opposed to me just working one-on-one with people. How could I get to the masses? And so I came up with a book and also I have an assessment. So I do have a tool because I was in technology and I enjoy that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of how I brought it all together into this system.
I love that you mentioned that because a lot of people who have come on my show in the past have said, well, I just don't have enough time. It's like the number one thing you hear besides I don't have enough money, which is I don't have enough time. Right. And everyone has the same amount of time, but you do have to be more careful, I think, with how you use your time than even how you use your money, because you can make more money, but you can't get back more time.
That's right. Once you've used it, you lose it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you also mentioned that people end up a lot of times because of the way they use their productivity and their time end up working for their business instead of working in their business. They're kind of like a job. They go to their AKA business, but they're actually continually working, not to grow it, but just kind of working as a slave for it. Now share with us a little bit about the Productivity Zone, your book, and the 10 core drivers. Now, maybe you don't want to give all the wonderful tips away, but and everything from the book, but maybe just give a little tidbit of what they might get when they check it out.
All right. Definitely. Well, the first thing I wanted to mention was just to piggyback on what you said is that, that we all have 24 hours a day. And one of the things that I help people to understand, and they're the first 4 of the core drivers, is it's not as much about the amount of time that we have. It's how much of ourselves we bring to that time. And so I call it energy management, because when we focus on time, time is something that we can't control. And when we focus on something we can't control, that creates stress, right?
Mm.
I mean, if I just think about trying to control something that I can't, right, then my blood pressure raises. So it's really about energy and how much energy we bring to things. And that's why we have days that are just like, wow, we got so much done and we're in the flow. And then we have those other days, well, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Right?
Yeah. And now is it mainly, because you did mention mindset before, is it really that our mind's getting in the way of us being the most productive that we could be?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You talked about people saying that there's not enough time. Well, that's an excuse, right? It's easy for us to make excuses about why we can't get done what it is that we want to get done, or that we're not able to prioritize, or we're not sure how to do something, right? We make all sorts of excuses. And a lot of times, I don't know, I notice this really easily with kids, is that, they make so many excuses. They could have just done the task that they were supposed to do in the amount of time that they were whining and bitching about it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I hate to say it, but, we adults aren't any different. We do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. We do. We when we have something we know we have to do, aka making sales calls or marketing, I think is a lot easier for people because they end up sometimes taking marketing like I'll do Facebook all day long or Twitter, and really that's not really connecting with people. So that's interesting. Now you mentioned there's 4 core drivers that you were going to hit on. What are those that really get in the way of people's productivity?
Well, so and these are the mindset elements, right? So they are, if we start with purpose is the first one.
Okay.
And obviously there's more depth than I'm going to be able to share in this time period. But purpose is really connecting to why it's important to you and what it's going to create for you that creates drive, right? I mean, think about it. We put a man on the moon. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that if you had asked people, a couple of years before we decided that was going to be our mission, no way, right?
Mm-hmm. Same with flying, yeah.
Right. But exactly. And there's all these things that those are the bigger things, but we experience that in our lives all the time and in businesses, is that when there's a strong purpose and people connect with it, and they connect as to why they want to do it, and it helps us to really break through any obstacles that there are and find solutions. And I use going into space as an example because also when they have a problem and there's a problem on the ship, right? They collect all the best minds, and they've never solved this problem before, but they get all people together to think outside the box and find a way because people's lives are at stake, first of all, right? And the greater mission.
Yeah, and that's a really, really good point you make there. I remember my boyfriend commenting one time as we go over the Brooklyn Bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge was built, I think, in the 1800s. And before we had all the machinery and the technology we have today, and he said, it just boggles my mind that a bunch of 3-pound brains got together and built this humongous, amazing structure. They had said it's so overbuilt. It's like 7 times overbuilt. Stuff. They have like 10 bolts per one little space. It's crazy. The newer bridges, they're not fortified the way the Brooklyn Bridge is. And he said, it just boggles my mind that a whole bunch of 3-pound brains thought of it, put it on paper, and then made it become a reality.
Right. And that's what purpose can do for us, can create really amazing results.
Wow. And is there, once you've gotten the purpose down, and I love that it's core drivers, the thing that really propel you forward, because that's one of the questions I often ask people, what is your key number one why or thing that propels you forward in your life and your business? What would you say it'd be for you, your purpose?
Well, for me, it's, I realize that it's really about helping people to open up and see the value in things, to create more value in things. So it's really to help people be the best that they can be. And I know that seems kind of like generic, but my most favorite comment or testimonial feedback that I've had from people is, you make me want to be a better person. And I can't, just helping to change people's lives and live happier lives just fills me up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and this is something that someone mentioned to me earlier today, that people often think, well, whatever their great gift is, whether it's connecting with people, whether it's coaching people, I think we often take our greatest gifts for granted. We do it so easily that it's like we don't even think about it. And we think, well, how could I possibly charge people or help people doing this? Because can't everyone do this? And if they could, then you wouldn't be, needed. But no, I think we can all make the world a better place by combining our gifts and talents and realizing that we do have value. Absolutely. So what exactly would you say? Because I've talked to a couple other people in the past who say, hey, I am a productivity expert, or I help people with productivity. What really differentiates you from other coaches when it comes to your philosophy and such?
Well, that's a good question. In a lot of my presentations and whatnot, we talk about my background and my accolades and whatnot, but none of that matters. What matters is that I have a system that works. And so for one thing is it works. I know it works. I've seen it work with, so many different people all around the world, regardless of race or culture or, industry. It works. So that's one thing is I know that I have a system that works. And secondly is I'm combining the skills and the mindset. So, a lot of systems come out and they are great productivity tools, but we don't get consistency, right? We need to be able to identify unproductive behavior patterns and then also be able to break those unproductive behavior patterns and build new ones and do that on a consistent basis. And the only way we can do that is, yes, we need tools, but we also, as I said before, the mindset is so important. It's really 95% mindset and 5% mechanics or tools or whatever.
Wow. And this recalls, I don't know if you've seen this picture. There's one online that says the subconscious is really what drives our whole life, and that 95% of it is driving our life and only 5% is touching in our conscious mind that we're even aware of. So we're going through life thinking, I'm making all conscious decisions here. I know exactly what I'm doing, but really it's all the stuff underneath the surface that's really driving and making a lot of our decisions.
Right. And that'll bring me to the next driver, because you might have a really strong purpose. And I've met some people that have an incredible drive and interest to do something incredible, but they sabotage themselves. Right. So it doesn't matter how great your goal is. Right. So it can't just be purpose. It's not enough. It gives us a huge amount of drive and fuel, but it needs to be directed and it needs to be kept sustainable, because people burn out too.
Yeah. So I'm guessing when you work with someone that you really help them get deep in there and figure out what that 95% that they're not even aware that's stopping them.
That's right. I'm very much oriented to removing the obstacles, because I don't believe that you can motivate someone. I believe that really you help to remove the obstacles that keep them from their motivation.
Wow. So now this is really intriguing to me. So if someone comes to you and you see that they keep self-sabotaging themselves, like say they're getting on the call and they're making like 50 sales calls, but getting no after no after no, where would you begin to discover what their sabotaging things are? Like, would you ask a series of questions? Like, how would you go about that?
Haha, that's a secret.
Oh, come on.
I'm just kidding. Well, one of the things is, and one of, another one of these core drivers is what I call language. So I listen very carefully to the language that they use, because to me, the language that they use will tell me, A, what behavior is coming after that, and also what were the thoughts and beliefs that were behind that created that. Because a lot of words that are chosen or sentences have presuppositions, things that were presupposed in their thinking. And so I can understand what's going on with someone, and also the direction of whether they're focused on what they don't want or what they do want. So that's the first thing, is when I ask someone what they want, I'd say more than 50% of the people will tell me everything that they don't want. They're so very clear on what they don't want. And they're so clear on that they're actually attracting it because they're not focusing on what they do want.
Wow. I like that you mentioned this, because this reminds me of a coach I heard recently who said, I asked one of my clients, so what exactly do you want? I mean, for us to even begin to decide how to build your business and grow it to the next level, where do you want to be, like, in your life? And they said back to them, well, I don't need too big of a house. And he's like, I didn't mention anything about houses.
Right. And so, it is through a series of questions and then listening very carefully to what people are saying. And then also asking them about what they're saying to themselves and understanding what questions are they asking themselves, because that's also creating, in that it's that self-talk that we have. What's happening with that self-talk and how do they identify themselves? What's their, because our identity is our strongest force. And if we don't actually see ourselves, even though we have this great purpose, if it's not really who we are inside and how we define ourselves, then we're not going to get there. We're going to create all that self-sabotage. That's why they call, you may have heard, for salespeople, they hit a glass ceiling for sales, and a business owner can't break that 1 million mark or that 5 million mark. And it's because they don't see themselves as a big company. We are a small company. So if I listen to their words and say, well, we're a small company and we can't do X, Y, Z. Right? And so I hear can't, and I hear that they're a small company. So it's telling me how they paint their picture and how it is that they are sabotaging themselves.
So in essence, the picture they paint in their head of who they believe themselves to be is actually what they create in reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And I'm not saying I'm the first one to say that either. So,
No. Yeah.
But the important thing is that people get that, right? It doesn't matter whether they hear it from me or from Stephen Covey or, from anyone else in this industry who may present it in a slightly different way. The important thing is that whoever's they're tuned into, that they get the message.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing, Penny, is that not everyone resonates with every single person or coach or mentor. Everyone will relate to a message differently. Like someone will just get what you say and it'll just change their life. And then they'll hear the same thing from Stephen Covey, as you said, and it'll just go right over their head. So that's why everyone, as I said, has value regardless of what your greatest gifts are, because there are people out there who need to hear it just from you.
That's right.
Yeah.
I totally believe that. And it's also timing, right? Maybe they needed to hear it a second time so absolutely. Everybody brings that incredible value to what they're doing.
Absolutely. And your book also touched on your core drivers, but your book also broke down the core drivers further into 3 category segments: champion psychology, winning strategies, and sustainable results. Give us some real world examples of how these 3 core segments might apply.
Well, it's kind of, I use a metaphor because as I said, energy is everything. It's about how we manage our energy. I don't care whether you're talking about yourself as an individual or your business, right? When it comes to your business, then it's going to be more like the culture of the business, and it's going to move in that direction. And so I use a metaphor of a windmill to represent, and these three items, these 3 segments are the blades of the windmill. So championship psychology is first. And as I said, psychology has to come first. A lot of people think, it's all about the strategy. If you've got an excellent strategy, and it's not true. Peter Drucker said something really important. He said that culture will eat strategy for breakfast every time. I love that quote, right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
And it's because it is the psychology. So championship psychology teaches you, either in your organization or for you personally, the 4 core drivers that manage your energy and get you in control, if you want to call it that, or very conscious and in awareness of how you're driving your psychology, your mindset, and your energy. Winning strategies, and so as I said, for an organization, when you said real life, that could be the company's culture. You want to look at those 4 elements to see how well your company culture is functioning. And then in the area of winning strategies, there's 3 core drivers there, and that's when you get to take and build on top of it. So if you've got a great solid house, now you can build the first floor, and you can set the whole plan about how everything is going to look and how you're going to do it, and and so forth. So you can plan it, you can set your priorities, and you can really also set what kind of processes and standards you're going to have to make that long-term successful. And then in the sustainability part, right? You need to have that because, it's also in the experience that we have with time management or any of the different things, let's say initiatives that get moving in companies, is they have a great blip up and things are great and maybe sales are great for a month or even 3 months or a year, but then they go back down. So it's not sustainable. So one has to focus also and create that balance on the things that are going to help to keep the company sustainable. And there's three drivers in that as well that help to make sure that you're proactively making sure that you're staying ahead of the curve, so to speak, and that also you're measuring your progress and those key elements that, sometimes really get by the wayside because people are so focused on doing that they don't take enough time to look at the sustainability pieces.
I like that you mentioned that people get hung up on the doing and they forget about the sustainable portion, or maybe just going within and said, where do I reflect? Where do I really see myself? Am I that person who wants to be a 6-figure business because I was there last year and now I've come back down to 60,000 from 100,000? What has caused me to get there? Do I not see myself in that realm, or is it pushing me to an uncomfortable position that I'm not comfortable being right now?
Right. And those are all the different things depending on, if I'm working with someone, we'll take a look at, is it the way they're seeing themselves? Is it some of the pieces are missing, so they need to go back and fill in some gaps so that they can have that strong foundation and find out where the gaps are.
Now, my assessment from what I've checked out from your book so far is that really you can't do one without the other. You can't just get the skills necessary and not have the mindset, because you won't be able to achieve optimum productivity. Is that correct?
Right. And you won't get the sustainability, right? You'll get a blip up, you'll get some success, and then you'll go back to doing it the way that you did before.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, people are so tool crazy. They're like, oh, show me the latest app. I've got to do that. And it ends up being more of a time waster than it does a time saver. Or if they find something that really works for them, again, if they're not in the right mindset, people used to call me the resource queen because I know people. I love to network. I love to know, what's up in technology and tools, and I listen to people and what's going on in this industry. So I'm always have a resource for somebody. Hey, contact this person, or, here's a tool that's going to be work for you, or here's a methodology that'll fit for this. And then I would find that, there would be people who didn't use it or take advantage of it. And I'd be like, what's going on? I really laid it out. And then I realized that, that's why I got into coaching, is because they have to recognize, that it's not just about the tool. They're not using the tool because they don't have the right mindset. They don't have the resourcefulness that they need. And so I need to work more with questions to help that person become more resourceful first before I give them resources. Steve Linder, one of my mentors, he always said, don't give resources unless you're giving it to resourcefulness.
Wow, that is very telling. And this recalls for me a wonderful woman I met several months back who, oh my girl, she goes to every networking event in the universe. I've never seen someone network so much. I mean, everywhere I go, I see her. And that's great. But what I realized is she's killing herself. And she said I was having minimal results. And I think it's the same thing like you were mentioning. You can go app crazy and get every app under the sun, or you can go to every single networking event or party and realize that if your mindset's getting in the way, or if you're just not really using, how should I say, the events or the apps in a way that is most necessary for what you need, then you're just going to be spinning your wheels.
Right. And here she might forget why she's networking. Yeah. If she's networking to meet some real key people, right, then she needs to be able to decide who she's going to follow up with, because probably she can't follow up with all of those people, and that's why she's not getting results, right? So it's in her follow-up process. It's understanding why she's doing it, right? There's all different pieces that come into that, because I see that with people all the time. They're like, oh, networking, it's such a waste of time, and because they're going to the wrong networking events because they're not meeting the type of people that they want to meet. Yeah.
And even if they do, they have to make a strategic effort and point that I'm going to meet these key people. And one woman had told me what she does is she actually goes, like, say it's a meetup event, she will go on the page to check out the people and do a little research before she gets there to see who's going to be in the room. And is it worth my time even going there? And if it is, okay, then I'm going to make a point to meet this person. And she's really, really off the charts because she's also and she said, I'll do something funky. Like one guy told me, he said, I bring a soccer ball when I go to a networking event and ask every person I want to meet to sign it and give me their, instead of doing the business card thing. And I do that to be off the wall so that when I talk to them, I say, remember, I'm the guy with the soccer ball.
That's smart, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
That's right. He's got his process. And, that just brings me to, that's a core driver that could be seen as one of the core drivers, which is focus. And that is also under championship psychology, is really getting clear on what you're focused about.
And I'm thinking, from what I've checked out on your book, The Productivity Zone, that doesn't just have to benefit people who own a business. It can benefit, anyone out there. You can be a housewife. You can go to a normal 9-to-5. I mean, who do you think would best serve by reading your book or get the most out of it?
I wrote it with entrepreneurs in mind because I love working with entrepreneurs. I love the spirit and the energy and the passion that a lot of entrepreneurs have. So it's definitely good for entrepreneurs. But as you said, it's it could be working moms, it could be housewives, because it's still about how you manage your energy, and it's about these what I call, lead versus lag indicators, right? So these are the things that lead, that drive. That's why I call them drivers, our success and our happiness. And, for entrepreneurs, they listen to the words productivity, whereas, the same word might be balance, right? But the same 10 core drivers are there. So I also just want to throw in there, students are a really big area that I'm going to start to be focusing on more, because I'm really upset at the growing statistics for teenage suicide, and there's 40% of students that are dropping out of school, and a lot of it has to do with stress and coping, which these 10 core drivers really help to address that.
Yeah, because that's what I got from reading the material, is that this doesn't just have to serve the small business community or entrepreneurs. It can serve anyone, because the number one thing I hear from almost anyone I know, whether they are in corporate, whether they're a housewife or retired, is I don't have enough time and I'm stressed out of my mind.
Right.
And why are we so stressed? I mean, what would be some of your reasons that you think that in today's day and time, with so much modern conveniences that we have, that we are that stressed?
Well, as I said, part of it comes down to that picture that we paint for ourselves, because the more we tell ourselves we're stressed and we focus on what it is that we feel that we're trying to control that we can't control, the more stress we create for ourselves. So that's a definite area. And, I think it's also the fact that we have a technology environment today that is, putting a lot of demands on us in terms of, our phone is buzzing, and there's so many now things coming at us from all different directions that I don't think we had in the same way, many years ago. And we don't set enough rules and boundaries for ourselves to make it an environment that's going to be an environment for success for ourselves. So we get bombarded with all these things, and we're in reaction mode. And so, the minute our phone buzzes, even though I'm doing something, if it's in my pocket, or, I can see that it blip up, or the email message comes up, my mind goes over there and it distracts me. And then I lose focus on what I'm doing. And then everything takes us twice as long to do than it really needs to.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I've heard people say to me, because I purposely have been kind of anti-texter, because it's become such an obsession in our culture that I've actually chose not to get a smartphone, Android, all that stuff. And some people have said to me, well, I texted you an hour ago. Why have you not responded? And I'm like, because I respond twice a day to emails, period.
Right.
And I think it's a good idea to set up certain structures like that for yourself, as you call them, boundaries, so that you don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah. And that's I like the word, you use the word obsession, and it's a total obsession. And I did a test, and I know you're all going to be horrified, but I'm human just because I'm this productivity expert, and I have my challenges too. I did a test to see how many impulses while I was driving from my house to a pickup location. It was about 3 minutes. How many times I would have the urge to check something on my phone or do something. I had the urge 10 times.
Wow.
And so it's an obsession. It's an impulse. It's almost an addiction that we we have to appreciate, like any other addiction, we have to control our environment to make it safe for ourselves. Right. And that's where the rules and boundaries come in, because it is an obsession. And it's almost, it's not like I felt good about that. Right. But it was a realization for me that I cannot have it anywhere near me. And then, of course, when you don't go with the impulse and it's not around you, it's not stressful then. You're not getting beeped and buzzed and whatever. It's allowing you to sit in peace. So we have to create those boundaries for ourselves, and then we can communicate them up to others, because we do have an influence in how people are responding to us. So, I have people who said, oh, my boss texts me at 6 a.m. and da-da-da. I said, don't answer it. If you answer it,
you train them.
Exactly. That's exactly the point, is we train people how to treat us. And so we have to set expectations otherwise, exactly as you did. That's a great example of, hey, I check it twice a day and I promise to get back to you within 24 hours, right? You're setting an expectation, what they can expect from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting that, there's been more and more crashes with some people, maybe texting while they're driving. Recently, I saw a video of someone who posted them flying quite a distance, and they actually had an iPad on board, which can be a wonderful tool because you can do mapping and check weather while you're on board. But he never looked outside the window like 95% of the time. He never looked up. And I'm like, oh my God, you're flying through the air at 150 miles an hour and you're not looking outside the window.
Right.
Freaks the hell out. Yeah. I mean, I know on the, there's less traffic up there, but still.
Well, it's a good metaphor that we are not present.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's what that's a metaphor for.
Absolutely. Well, I want you, before we leave here, because we're almost ready to end our interview, I want you to let people know how they can find out more about your book and find out more about you.
Well, great. Thank you. And I'd like to offer anybody who's listening, I do have all these 10 core drivers in an assessment, and there is a free version that's available from my website. You just get a feel for it and get an idea of what are the 10 core drivers and where you stand. And then if you're interested, there are more in-depth pieces there that you can get through education or further details. It's www.p as in productivity, 10 as in the number, app.com. So that's where they can find out about the assessment, find out more about me. My book can also be found on that site if you just do p10app.com/productivity zone.
Fabulous. Well, I want to thank you. This was really fascinating conversation, and I know it's going to help a lot of people out there, and I hope they give you a call and get your book today. Everyone go to P as in Paul, 10app.com and get the book today and find out more about Penny. And Penny, I want to thank you again for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks, Christina.
Join our mailing list today by texting Savvy Radio to find out about upcoming guests and events and receive a free gift, how podcasting can help increase sales and influence in your business.
Savvy Central Radio is home to over 100,000 listeners per month globally and runs in syndication on 8 AM and FM platforms, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out more about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out to the world, call 718 area code 713-2289 or email at savvycentralradio@gmail.com.